something you sent to me. Yeah, yeah. All right, just can you give me like a countdown so we like can start
We are
and
rolling
line up the
in
sound?
1, 2, 3, and action.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Simple Podcast. We got a little bit more weird topics to talk about today. We kind of haven't done these in a while. Um, it's probably gonna be a little bit inconsistent this time, so I hope you like it.
This
You know,
time,
I mean, to be fair, we're not exactly on point all the time, but I've been thinking. Uh,
scripts.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say scripts. We don't need no stinking scripts.
Yeah, I like to do it on the
Go ahead.
fly. Kind of. People call it, talking out of your ass, but I'm just trying to think while talking. But
Yeah.
I forgot to close my door. Hopefully, we don't get any introduce. But anyway, I was talking about like the whole idea, the phrase that I sent to you, like people don't have ideas, ideas have people. The whole thing of at some point there's like that one, let's say, value that you have, like it's almost the ultimate value for you, and like you will
Okay.
always fight any attempt, like you will probably act aggressively or defensively, like for any attempt that challenges that value, let's say.
Yes. Because it's so tied to your identity.
Yeah, it kind of has to do, it probably is in a way. Let's say, what is the, it's kind of like the ideal thing for you. Let's the ideal personality that you want to be. That could be it, and that what makes it
Absolutely.
like a meta value. Let's say like a kind of an ultimate value for you.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Mm-hmm.
this could be anything. It could be religion. It could be I don't know, science for you. It could be philosophy for someone else. It could be maybe like a sort of a job for someone else.
It could be all of
And
those things.
yeah, yeah, it could be a mixture of multiple things. It
But
could be someone that who is alive, like someone who is famous, let's say, and that's your ideal, and you probably almost worship that person.
the thing about those sorts of notions, and I know I'm guilty of them too, because we all are in certain ways,
Mm,
but I always wonder, where did they come from? Because I know, let's just use religion, I feel like, because it's easy and maybe less offensive, but religion is something that, generally speaking, one is raised with and you grow up with that. And so someone gave that to you and put that into you. So
yeah,
when that becomes their identity and they will defend themselves and that notion at no cost, or at any cost rather, um, but was it ever theirs to begin with? Like, because that really wasn't
yeah, yeah.
them,
It's like,
that was somebody else that like did that to them.
I mean, it's funny because I heard that in a lecture before, and it's like your ideas are not exactly yours. Like it's
Right.
it's
I mean,
almost
right.
impossible to come up with the original idea at this point. Like after all this amount of people that have existed, maybe
Well, I
we
think
don't
that's why
exactly know
I'm
if
so
ideas.
open to ideas.
Yeah, I mean, also we don't know
Right.
if like ideas go through generations. Let's say, for example, somehow, like it.
Oh, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like mm, who knows if it can like be transmitted biologically. Let's say
I'm that
we
like
don't exactly know.
epigenetic sort of aspect, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, in that way, I think maybe an idea can have you. Maybe I'm taking it too literally, that phrase, but in the way somebody can
Yeah,
make me a Christian just by virtue of having grown up in a Christian family, what would the Jesuit priests
Yeah,
back in the day would say, give me the child between the ages of 1 and 7 and I will give you the man, because they brainwash that child into being, whatever they want them to be. And that's the ideology.
yeah,
But I think like you and me, we're sort of knowledge sponges. And I think that is something kind of interesting, maybe, or anomalous, because I am aware of that cognitive, I don't know, disparity. Like, I know that I might be thinking this because somebody put that in me. I want to have control. So then I will read about all religions or all information, conspiracy theories to hardcore science. And then once I have that base, then I can make the choice instead of having someone make the choice for me. Because I want to have the
yeah,
ideas, not the other way around. Because I don't feel in control at that point of myself or my
yeah.
thoughts. Yep.
Well, I mean, there's also the thing that the problem that this kind of system will always introduce is like that. And I think, and I said that to a friend today. It's like you want to keep that idea, you want to keep that ultimate idea, and what you do is like you give it for you try to make it immortal. Kind of by having children, for
Sure.
example, and like transmitting that idea to them in one way or another. I think the problem
Mm-hmm.
is if you don't exactly do your job well in explaining that idea and how does it deal with other people's idea, it will eventually die by other better ideas, let's say, or will kill itself by being too hostile to other ideas.
Being a bad idea.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and also you could do a bad explanation of it because I mean,
Oh,
to be
sure.
fair, like I don't think there's any one person that can perfectly explain religions, regardless of what that religion is, because it's way too complicated.
And I think it's also relative. It's not there's not a concrete answer. What you might get out of a religion, say, is someone else might get something completely different out of it, but they're still receiving the good. So there is no
Yeah,
one size fits all answer because yes, it's so complicated.
it is so complicated. It's like there's the idea is like we have that thing in our brain or in our like that kind of always looks for a religious-ish value. And it's like if you take the
The God
religion
gene or
out,
whatever.
not really, but it's like that. I think there might be a bright. I'm not exactly sure of that information, so I will look it up later on. But like we might have a part of our brain who like is
Mm-hmm.
responsible of keeping up with that religious value, let's say. And it's like if you say that you don't have a specific religion, that could like go to some other value. It could be
Yes.
politics, it could be science, it could be
Yes.
something else.
And that's exactly what I think is
And you might,
happening.
yeah, and that might go out of control, and you will never really realize
Mm-hmm.
because you're obsessed with the idea, and any other idea is like bad.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've been calling a lot of these political, they're not radicals, but I feel like maybe the left in politics is pretty mild in America, but I feel like the people on Twitter are so far left. It's crazy. And I call them zealots, which is sort of a religious term because exactly they have that lack of meaning that a god or a
Yeah.
religion might do. But so then that, yeah, that void that human
Well,
need is supplanted with, you know,
there's also the
politics.
argument is like right now you find that looking for meaning is the one of the biggest trends now.
Is it? That's good.
Well, maybe, but I think that wasn't exactly an issue if you go like 300 years ago.
Well, we were too busy back then. We had to like go out and work in the fields all day just to make our food. Now I'm just fucking go to work for 8 hours. I fucking get on my
Yeah,
phone
but
and they
like
bring me food.
yeah, but also like you had a religious system that is working on a large basis almost everywhere in the world. Multiple of
Oh,
them.
well, there's
Like you
that
had
too.
Christianity, you had oh shit, I gotta. Okay, we're gonna have to pause.
One, two, three.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're back. That was kind of unexpected. I kind of forgot that I have something to get, but I also forgot what we were talking about exactly. Talking about the ultimate value, religions, and how
Yes.
people can be very radical about it in a way. If you don't, oh yeah, I was talking about the fact that if you don't explain it very well, um, there's like that thing in the video I sent to you. I don't know if you watched it. It's like 2 hours of conversation between four people. It's
Oh, I
talking
just
about
saw
the
that this morning, so
meaning.
no.
Yeah, yeah. It's talking about meaning, and I like philosophy and science, and that you cannot really exactly rely. Like they keep saying that you can't exactly rely only on science, like because you can't exactly explain, technically speaking, what science is. I'm not exactly saying that's what they say. It's what do you call it? Is that paraphrasing, kind of? I'm not exactly accurate about it
Sure.
because you cannot
You're
break
you're
down
summarizing and
exactly what
editorializing.
science is in a way.
No, I totally agree.
Uh,
And I think that lack of meaning, that dry, cold science, that's I think what bums me out about it the most. Like I love science, but
yeah,
like
Li- like two of them like used to be in the churches apparently. That's kind of a spoiler for you. I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna link the video in the description, by the way.
it's
Uh,
oh
they say
oh
that like that they in a way because like the church was losing people's faith in the religion, they in a way they dumbed it down to just the uh physical rationality of the religion, let's say, in some way or another. So they just reduced it to whatever we have as physical, but they say that there must be multiple levels of it, and physical level is just one of them. And there's
mm.
also another
Well,
phrase
and
that one said is like we're in a crisis of meaning. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, you see a lot of people asking the meaning of life.
well, people have always asked that question, but like you were talking earlier, back in the day, it seems, and I don't know if it's like a me projecting onto the past, but it does seem like they had more of a purpose and more of a meaning. They did things just because they did things because that's what you do. And now that we're so, I don't know
Mm.
what. Yeah, there is a crisis of meaning. I know I've been going through one my entire life. I think I've just tried to learn to revel in the meaninglessness of it. Um, it's a very waiting
Yeah.
for Godot absurdism. Um, you know, but yeah, it's terrible. But you're right though. I guess religions did have more of a scientific aspect to them. Like I think when you think about the mystery schools in Egypt, science and religion were very much, this solid mass. But yeah, the separation of the two, and I think it really is kind of sad. Take the double slit experiment, or the double slit experiment. Are you familiar with that?
No, I haven't heard of that.
So it's like this physics experiment they did back in like the 70s, and so basically, so they would take particles like an electron, like single electrons, and they would make this like panel with one slit in it, right? And so then they would shoot.
Oh, I think I know. Yeah, yeah.
Right, so then they would put
So
so
if you absorb them, there will be particles, and if you don't absorb them very closely, there will be waves.
they act like a wave exactly.
It's
And
like the super state of quantum physics in a way.
yes, and I've always been so intrigued by that experiment. And then, so when I try to have a discussion with someone about it, I in turn take what we quote unquote know about that experiment and then imbue it
Yeah.
with, well, does that mean that perception is important? Is it a vital, like creative process of our physical universe because it seems to actually affect the very matter, like the subatomic at a subatomic level. Like, what does that mean about our place in the universe? And then everybody gets on my ass because they're like, it doesn't mean anything. That's just what it is. And I'm like, well, that's boring.
Yeah, I think that's what they
What does it
meant.
mean, though?
That's what the guy meant when he said, "I think we dumbed it down." Because like at some point, like they started asking like there was one guy who was teaching in an university. They're all a bunch of interesting people, I would say. I haven't watched all of them. I know like two or one of them, but the conversation is very interesting as it like keeps going. And like they said, one of them said also, it's like he asked the like his students, where do you go for, knowledge? Well, university. Well, where do you go for your wisdom? And it's like no real answer,
Right.
specifically with the
Universe.
people who like don't really believe in like but like you would expect some people to have somewhere to go, like if they seek some wisdom. And like specifically the
But
people who
again,
didn't exactly focus on religion, or like they didn't really associate with one, they usually didn't have an
well, and
answer
other
way
people
more
might
than
have.
others.
And I agree, but I wonder what the definition of wisdom is from one person to the next, because I think there is so
Mm.
much. Well, I
Yeah.
I think we do get a locked into what I guess the 3D, like the money, the jobs, the houses, all of that shit, and people really get stuck in that realm and they think that is wise. Well, I pay my bills on time and I've got, a six-figure income and they feel like they got it. But you're right, maybe people don't.
But that's not wisdom.
That's not wisdom, indeed.
That's
No.
materialism in a way.
Yep. Yep. And maybe people don't think that they need it anymore. They think that they've survived this long doing this. Why do I need any of that esoteric nonsense? Well,
Well, I mean, also, what's the point of it? At some point, like at some level, what's
right.
the point of it?
Right.
I don't know. They
Right.
also argued like
You can't take it with you.
the thing of like how do you explain people having quote unquote religious experiences? How do you explain that? Which I'm not sure what does religious experience mean, because like we don't
Interesting.
have that we
Well,
don't have
so I
that
don't.
term, let's say,
I'm
at
uncertain
least
of
not on
what
my side.
he means by how do you explain it. Is he talking about how may I convey my religious experience to you, or how do we scientifically explain the occurrence of what people might refer to as having a religious
Yeah,
experience?
that one.
Okay,
The second option is
okay.
because they were also talking about psychedelics and specific type of them.
DMT is produced in the brain,
I
sometimes
think
during
so,
trauma.
like some mushrooms and such.
Well, and psilocybin, of course.
It's
I
like
mean, and I've had mystical experiences, and I would even say I've had religious experiences, but I always think, and I've also had moments where I've just touched the cosmos in a very secular, but very like, what is that? Like the power of one or whatever the fuck it is, like where I've just been
yeah,
like,
but that kind of doesn't make sense if you think of it as logically, does it?
no, it doesn't make any logical sense. But the thing but every time I've had those experiences, I've defined them differently because I think of where I'm at in that particular moment in my life. But
Mm,
you're right.
yeah.
But I have no, unless there was some chemical something going on in my brain. Yeah, I don't know what that is because sometimes I've been on drugs when that's happened, and sometimes it hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had like I don't know what a mystical experience is. I don't think I had it. I'm not exactly sure, so I
You
can't
should take
exactly
some
relate to
drugs.
that. I honestly, while I'm watching that video, I'm like, maybe I should just at least test it for once. But I'm like, maybe I'm not gonna, because like that's one of my rules that I kind of don't want to break. But also at
Right.
some points, breaking some rules is not exactly the worst thing you can do.
Right.
Well, it
Like
depends on how
how
bad it
important
is.
is that value to you to break it or not?
Well, I mean,
Would
see,
the
I
knowledge
don't look at
perchance
it as.
gained be worth?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, well, I was just saying, like, well, because we've been talking about values and things that you can't let go of. So I'm thinking, like, well, you don't want to break that value of yours, but how strong or how integral to your identity is that desire to not break that rule? And would the possible knowledge or experience gained from breaking that value, like just one time, like, and I'm not peer pressuring you, I'm just posing a question. Um,
Yeah,
could that possibly be
I thought
worth,
of that.
you know,
I really did think of that like a lot of times, and specifically today. it's like, in my opinion, I always focus on that one. It's kind of focusing on a sentence, and I know it's not exactly the best way to go around your own values. Like focus on that one sentence of whole book. It's not really how it works. You got to understand the whole book, because that's a totally different thing from one page or one sentence of the book. As like
Right.
there's
I
always
agree.
like there's always that push to contemplate about things and actually try to truly understand the position of other things and your, like, around you in the world and your position in the world, and how things actually work. If you could, I mean, you're supposed to try. We have that push
Right.
in there, and I'm like, maybe that would be worth it to try it at least once. And I'm not sure if I will do, because I still think I won't. But I'm always thinking, maybe it will be worth, just for the sake of trying to know, in a way.
Sure. And you could have a terrible fucking experience too, you know? So, and there's
Yeah,
always that risk, and then there's always that fear mingled in that. So, but I mean, it's one of those things you can't know what it is or what people experience unless you do it. Like it's one of those things that it can't be
yeah.
conveyed. And that's why I think consciousness is so cool, because I'll never be you
What I
and you'll
find
never be
interesting
me.
about
And yeah, so you just
yeah,
can't know what it is unless you do it.
what I
But
find very
that's so much of
interesting
everything.
about these, like the type of psychedelics specifically, is like people take them and suddenly they stop smoking, or like they say that after taking that, let's say, drug that one time, it's like it sit in their brain, the values of right and wrong, in a way, like in a whole different way. And I'm like, that is kind of a very religious experience, isn't it?
I think that it is. Well, and because I feel like we as humans, I don't know how familiar you are with the concept of game theory, but we humans, evolved.
Oh, I have a book, I want to read it.
And yeah, it's very interesting. And we have evolved to see and feel and experience only the things that we needed to see and experience to survive. So there is just
Yeah,
myriad other spectrums and whatever that we are just not privy to that exist, but they're so negligible to our
negligible.
reality that they just don't even register. So I think sometimes, like psychedelics, like psilocybin mushrooms, there's something that in the way that it fucks up the circuitry to where it shuts down that those game theory walls, and it becomes, you see more like the bigger picture
uh,
more, and it's like, oh
yeah,
fuck, and it
yeah.
can be life changing indeed, or terrifying to some people that are so, if you will, jacked into the matrix. It's terrifying to them.
Yeah, I would imagine. But I mean, it's also like, in a way, you can't exactly explain why that one drug does that, or maybe you can, but like, it's not exactly. I feel like science can only take you too far. That's what I think. I'm not saying it's
Well,
invaluable. It is very valuable, but at some
well,
point,
sure.
science doesn't exactly tell you this is right, this is wrong. It tells you this is how things are.
Well, but everything.
Yeah.
Well, we're so connected with the environment. Like you're familiar with Alan Watson. He talks about
Oh
people.
yeah.
People think that our skin separates us from the world, but actually it connects us to the world. We are a part of the world, but we're we think we're like the world is out there, but we're in it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so everything affects us. Whether I drink
Oh yeah.
alcohol,
I love that analogy.
whether I drink alcohol, like I get drunk. When I drink bleach, I die. Like literally everything that we consume does
Yeah.
shit to us. It just so happens that shit. does that to my circuitry. That's just how that affects me if I consume it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I
That's
do
it.
remember like there was one argument, like few arguments about like AI and like why AI like not exactly the way we imagine it is, and it doesn't like there's no really general AI that has been made yet. Not that I know of, which I'm kind of big on.
Are you
It's
talking
like
about genuine AI?
genuine
Like
AI.
the
Yeah,
real.
yeah.
Okay, right, right.
So, well, like the way now, most of the times, you would program it as like to find objects, and apparently, some people suggest or maybe found out. I don't know if that's a fact. It's like our brains don't process the world around us as objects. It like process it as patterns of things, like things of use. Let's say you don't
Okay,
see the object of chair. Let's say when you get in it, when the room that's full of chair, you find a place to sit down. I
right,
think that's
right.
and it is an interesting way because there isn't really an objective. Then there isn't an object way of
Right.
looking at the world. It's not exactly separate objects. It's like that same analogy of Alan Watts, which I really love. It's like the universe is like splashing upon like black paint on a white wall, and
Yes.
like
I've mentioned
and
this all the time. I love
everything
it.
everything
It's
in
you.
in the universe is that. And you have the big
Right.
splash at the beginning, like at the middle of the wall, and then the, let's say, complicated patterns of like random dots and
Yep.
splashes and like random shapes
Yep.
that comes out, and like that's kind of like us. We're still part of it.
Yes.
We're not exactly objects,
Yes. And
separated objects from it.
right.
Well, which makes
Right.
sense, I would
And
say, in one way
and
or another.
in that story that he tells that I just love so much, I always think of, because he always mentions the Big Bang isn't a thing that happened, it's a thing that's still happening.
It's still happening.
And the thing is when I think about my consciousness, like that fucking explosion of thought and experience that's going on behind my eyes,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the power of the explosion. Like, and that
Mm.
we are like, because we
Yeah.
are it, and holy fuck, it's wild, bro. But yeah,
It is. Yeah. I mean,
but
um.
also, oh sorry, and I didn't, but I wanted to go back because I knew that what you're talking about. But
Go
yes,
ahead.
there is no couch. There is a bunch of material that we've put together in a specific configuration that we call a couch. Like the couch isn't real.
Yeah.
We only call it a couch because it's only a couch because we call it a couch.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the
For
world
me,
is
I find it.
literally nothing. But
I find it very
go ahead.
interesting because we have that pattern of programming, which is called object oriented, and
Mm-hmm.
there's another one that is called function oriented programming, I think, or function driven programming, which like they're both a totally different thing. Like that one type of programming things will always look at whatever thing type of data you look at as an object. Like you could make a chair. A chair can be made of, let's say, wood or like metal or like,
Yep.
yeah. But like
Yep. But it's still a
also the
chair.
problem is like how do you separate totally between objects? Let's say chair is made of 5 pieces of wood. Well, you also can make table out of 5 pieces of wood, let's say.
Exactly. So that's the
you have
functionality
to
aspect,
make
right?
you have to
Okay.
make another separate object with probably extra configurations in it just to make sure that they're both different and can be recognized. And then you have the issue of, if you look at it from one angle, it's going to be different totally from another angle. So maybe if we not look at things as objects but more as functions, because
Sure.
it is in a way like debated which way is faster up when you program things, and most of what I've seen as articles suggest that the object oriented is kind of slow when it comes to performance. You can get things done quickly in terms of how can you finish the product, but like its performance compared to the other functional like driven programming is gonna be much or like at least a little bit slower than it. It depends on overall the whole function of what you're doing. But I was
Sure.
thinking maybe because maybe it's a bug when you look at things in an objective way where you kind of lose meaning, like which is
Well,
important to have.
or
To
or
have.
you gain meaning maybe because so I'm there might be a chair and a table in a room. I can sit on the table and I can eat off of the chair. So I can still
Yeah.
so and they are still chairs and they're still tables, but I can switch up the function of them and still use them. So like you say, it might take a little bit longer because maybe I need a screwdriver to, tighten up a screw in my bookshelf over there. And I don't have a screwdriver. And so then it's like, shit, I can't do it. But I have like a dime in my pocket and I could go up there and use that as a screwdriver substitute. But if I hadn't had that functionality programming thought,
Yeah.
uh, or I didn't use it at all, I would have just been like, well, I'm not going to do it. But since I had that wherewithal to think, oh, I could use this as that, and it works perfectly. Again, not for its intended purpose, but it worked. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the way of looking at things as as like functional things, things of use.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you look at it as objects, that the object that can screw like you can screw the screw with. I don't know what that function is called. I'm sorry, but like
And
if
screw.
yeah, I'm sorry. The naming is weird for me. Uh,
Uh,
uh language
that's your
barriers.
perverted mind. No,
No, no, I wasn't going
no.
there. What the hell, man? That is your mind.
Oh,
I
I'm
caught you. I caught you with your hands in the fucking cookie
boomster.
jar. What are you thinking of, huh?
But go on. I don't. But no, and I totally
Yeah,
agree.
and
But
if
when
you
people
like,
get so locked into the object, you're locked in. Like that's all there is.
yeah, and I think yeah, you kind of lose a little bit of functionality as you focus on the objective. Um, but
Indeed.
I'm sure like there definitely is a use for like the objective way of looking at things at some points, but also like the fact that if you objectively look at if you look at your life objectively in every way in every way it will just lose meaning and like you kind of dumb your life down. I like that term, like we dumbed it down when it comes to church
Hmm.
and like religious teaching, and I think that what happened. It's like they didn't. I think the men teaching the religion just like became less and less wise over the time, and they became like
Probably.
the by the book people, and I think that's what happened, and I think why that's
That
probably
makes total.
why
Well,
people.
once the book is written, I guess there it is.
Well, yeah, but how do you fucking explain it? There's probably multiple different ways, depends on the time and the context.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, and I know I've talked about it before, but that's why I get so irritated with Neil deGrasse Tyson because he is this priest that only promotes what's already written in the book and he doesn't do anything else. And that irritates. And I also think the way he explains things and is so rude to anybody else that does not like the way he'll just like make fun of anybody that might have a doubt or a question. And he's always a dick about it. And I'm like, you could probably explain that better and maybe win some people over to your side more instead of being a fucking asshole.
Yeah,
But no, conveying
yeah,
things in a good way is important. Well, because I feel like this documentary that I'm making, I feel like I'm broaching some really abstract topics, and what I think my biggest challenge has been is how the fuck do I dumb down this really abstract concept and convey it in words and images. And I feel like I've been really successful, but you have to take it into account. People say the true market, well, a genius, not that I am one, but is when you can take a complex object or complex notion and explain it simply. But a lot of these people these days
Yeah.
will make these really simple things sound really complicated, or they make the complicated thing sound complicated so people don't shut down and don't want to understand. Like the stock market, that is
Well,
like some
also at
esoteric
some point,
nonsense that they want to be
yeah,
intimidating, and so people don't go into it, so they win.
yeah. It's also sometimes like not exactly the best approach to go by just simplifying complicated things, because sometimes you need to really explain the complicated for you to take on like that simple
Right,
answer.
right.
And I think
Because
that's what's
sometimes shit
happening.
is just
It's
complicated.
like also like you have the by the book people problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that exists in every religions, but I think it's starting to get worse and worse here. Um, because we have this set of way we think of things, and we're almost
Mm-hmm.
not okay with taking any other way of looking at
Right.
life. And like this cannot end up
And
good.
again, well, and it's just like we were talking about earlier. Well, people have all of these thoughts and beliefs. Whose beliefs are they? They're not theirs. They're the fucking book. So are they even
Yeah,
making the fucking decision? I don't think they are. That book is. That's power. That's
I like to
control.
think that I'd like to think that I made my decision at some point to
Sure.
stay with it,
And I'm not putting
but
you in
I
that.
might be wrong.
But you have questions, you have
I mean, no,
thoughts.
but well, I mean, yeah, but
I think
like
that's more
most
than
people
most people
do,
have.
but like they will accept that answer and that's it. And I always think it's like, no, because if you look at it objectively, some of these books will contradict themselves, and I think maybe they're not contradiction themselves. They're just like trying to complicate the dumbed down, like first dumbed down information. I think that's what's
Sure.
going on because
Yeah,
like
but
they need to explain it in
but
a complicated context. Otherwise, it wouldn't
sure.
exactly work
Sure.
very well. Like, how do you deal with people with different beliefs? Do you just go around and kill them, or do you try to live like with them and try to like be content? I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Well, I mean, so it really depends because if you have a different belief than I have a different belief, I feel like your belief isn't hurting me at all and my belief isn't hurting you at all. But
Yeah,
when somebody decides, oh, I need to kill this other person because they have a different belief in me, at that point, their belief is affecting me. So it didn't.
yeah,
There was no, like my belief is irrelevant to anybody else until my belief makes me want to kill somebody because they think differently than me, and then that's when it's like, oh shit, I think we need to reel this back in. That's when it starts to
yeah,
affect people, and but we get to that point,
yeah.
and it's wild to me. But
We
how
kind
much
of
it,
yeah, we're getting to that point.
but how much of that is social? Because let's say like in an Islamic country, I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
blanket terming. I'm an American, so I have my biases, I
no,
guess,
no, go ahead.
or misinformation. But if you go against the grain, what's going to happen to you? So if
Oh yeah,
like if you come out if
fucking
somebody
hell.
if somebody says they're gay or whatever, it's just like, well, I just have I'm a different. And, well, you're probably going to get thrown off of a fucking building or something. And so, how much of it, like me, I'm not a flat earther, and I don't think I'll ever be a flat earther. And while I've gone down the rabbit holes, and I sometimes they have really compelling evidence, and I'm like, interesting. And you know what? I don't know, but I think the one thing that's ever going to keep me wholly from being like, yes, I think the earth, like, I literally can't make the mental switch to believe that because I think that the social aspect. If I
Yeah,
think all of a sudden think that the earth is flat, I'm going to be a pariah. I will be an outcast. And so my thinking will never ever switch over to the, you know what, that is good enough evidence for me. That's better evidence than I think NASA has ever given me. And
huh.
but no, I don't want to be an outcast, so I don't think my brain will ever make the flip. So again, I'm being
Mm.
controlled in a way, even though I'm aware I my thoughts might be hindered by the collective conscious, but there we are.
Hmm.
So we're all subject to it at some level. I guess it just depends. But the social aspect I think is really important, and it's not just what we think or what we feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, the problem is, it's like, how do you deal with the people who are different? And it's like, do you cure them? Do you put them in a rehabilitation camp? What if you just couldn't change them by that time? Do you just send them to the gulag or something? Because, like, I think the measure should always be how much are they harming everyone else.
Right.
And I think, see, the thing is, and this is where I will, it will be a bit controversial in some places. Uh, I honestly do not give a shit if people are gay or not. They can do themselves. They do you do you, I do me.
Right.
As long as they're not
That
harming
seems pretty
anyone.
normal.
I also don't care if, like, they're
Right.
Muslims or atheists or not. As long as they're not
Right.
going around yelling at me for not having
Right.
subscribing to their ideas. I'm
Right.
fine with that. For me, like, one of the most important values is people's life. It's like, we're
Right.
told, like, life is very, 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 very important. Don't go around killing people
Right.
for any reason whatsoever, unless they're
Right.
killing you, for example, or like killing your family or something like that. Yeah, defend yourself. It's like, don't do harm, but defend
Right.
yourself.
I mean, that sounds completely normal. That's like the golden rule. Like
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
different, if you
The
think
problem
somebody
is,
else is different, you might be different to somebody else, and then when they come for you, and it's like, oh shit, I thought it was
yeah,
part of the crowd. It's just like just people are people, and I think that's where we get in trouble is we forget that again where that was the concepts versus people thing of that video that you shared with me
oh yeah,
yesterday because people are people. Like just because someone is Islamic or someone is Catholic, you can't say that they are like this because they're a part of that group. They might be, but they're still an individual fucking person. The
yeah.
people are so
I
easy
mean,
to
I'm a,
categorize
I'm
someone and make snap judgments.
for me, like, it's because of the way I look at things. I think the whole gender thing, and, like, because I talked about this today, for example, it's probably,
Uh-oh.
it's not psychological, it's not biological, it is mental, and like, psychological, I mean. And I'm thinking, what if it turns out to be like a mental thing that, let's say, 100 years later, we figure out that can be cured, whatever cured may mean right now. What do we do with these people? Do we force them to take that cure, or what? Like, what do we do about that?
Well, I think some people
It's
would
like a
say,
vaccine issue.
well, so to imply there would be a cure would mean that there is something wrong. And I think some people would take
Yeah,
umbrage against the notion of needing to be cured because there could, like, is there anything wrong? Or is that just kind of what it is,
yeah,
and needing acceptance. But maybe somebody would be miserable and being a trans or whatever gender person, and they would want to have a quote unquote cure or be normal or whatever words we want to like assign to that shit. But
yeah,
um,
yeah. I mean, what do you do with that? That is
but how much of
that's a real issue. That would be a real issue at some point.
well
Maybe,
the
who knows? I'm I'm
I'm
not saying that to stop people. Like, yeah,
oh
don't be
no,
this and don't be that.
yeah,
Be whatever you
no,
want.
yeah, it's a thought
Do whatever
experiment.
the hell you want, as long as you're not harming anyone. I really cannot give a shit.
Right. Well, the thing about
As long as
gender,
no one is harming you, I also cannot give a shit.
do you think gender is a construct?
Of social, like, no, I think it is, like, ingrained in us over time, biologically.
Because I do think sex, like biological sex, is a thing. But I wonder because I'm always curious about how things
The
become
rules are in one way or another. Yeah, they are like in a way somewhat construct, but
because
like
because like a
the thing
woman,
itself, gender. Yeah,
like let's
no,
say like a
it's
woman
just
is supposed to
biological.
wear skirts, the fact that
Yeah,
a woman wears makeup and a woman does these kinds of things and a woman does these and a man is supposed to be like this and a man is supposed to be like that. Like I wonder how much like
yeah.
men wear pants and
I
women wear
think.
or so a lot of those concepts of like human distinctions of feminine versus masculine, I think those are constructs because when you look at a female dog,
Hmm.
she's not prancing about like doing whatever. She's just a fucking dog. If I didn't look at the crotch, I wouldn't know that it was a man or a male or a female dog. She's just a dog.
Well, but
But
also, mm, there is. It's not. I don't think it's completely a construct. Some of it is, but when it comes to like
right,
people's
right.
choices of how to be in their life, most of the
Behavior,
time,
right,
the behavior is very consistent about among how normally whatever you want to say normally is men will usually do,
right,
which is like usually they will go for scientific like interest in things, engineering, uh I don't know, like scientific researches, like computer
right.
science, mathematics. That you see
Right.
that a pattern
We're not getting
everywhere.
gender
Like, yeah.
studies degrees or yeah,
Well,
social
type
work,
of
yeah,
interest. It's
master's
like
degrees, yeah.
things. You're interested in things,
Right.
and like you
Right.
see also a pattern of women, females, let's say, in most cultures, no matter of how different the culture is, overall you will find that they're mostly interested in people, let's say. And what it
Right.
means, like they will go in fields like nursing and what do you call it, like there will be more
Healthcare.
physicians, there will be more nurses, there will be more probably
Mhm.
people who would study psychology, I believe, of mostly female.
Right.
These type of studies.
And I mean no disrespect, but I have far, far less
Yeah.
intellectual conversations or abstract conversations with females than I do with men because I think, yeah, they're much more like about the doing the people and the things and like I want to figure out the mechanics of the universe or build a machine to make our lives
Yeah.
easier. Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah,
But
no,
well,
I
maybe
agree.
that's just a
And I
thing.
and
And it's not like it's not like I'm saying that you shouldn't do that.
but
I'm just saying that is how
there
things
are
are.
female engineers.
Well, they're not
I
as
am a theater
much.
guy,
Yeah.
so I mean there is crossover, but you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is socialized and how much of that is nurture versus nature, that whole thing. I mean, I guess that's what
Oh well,
I guess that's
there's
what
been
we're
some
basically talking about.
experiences about it. Like in some countries where like some of them are like very, let's say, strict about these rules, and some of them were like they really don't enforce these rules. Let's say the traditional rules, and um, the ones that were not even enforcing the traditional rules had the most different. So it's not exactly socially structured. Apparently, it's just a matter of people choosing what to be. And yes, you
That
will
makes
always
sense.
find an exception, but the exception doesn't make the rule.
Right.
And that's
Right.
why it's called an exception.
Well, there was that. I think they were twins in the 1970s or 60s where I think like a circumcision
Mm.
went wrong and they accidentally like cut the little wiener off of the boy. And then instead of like trying to do all the
Oof.
surgery, they just raised him as a girl and then and
Mm.
told her gave her a girl's name and all this shit and but like as she was growing up
That seems interesting.
she didn't want to play with the dolls, she wanted to play with the trucks and the cars and the army men and all this shit and they kept trying to like no 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 no
Yeah.
you're a girl, but she had no idea why she felt like she was a boy, but it was because she was
Yeah. And that's why I think you should leave people be. Like you should just mind your business when it comes to what they're trying to do, and
right.
like what kind of, let's say, sexuality do they have? It's not exactly of your business. I think it will be a problem
Right.
if they're trying to push it in everyone's face. I hate over the top people pushing things on your face. And I think a lot of people
Right.
don't like the person who tries to push the thing in your face all the time.
Right.
I think that would be
Well,
the problem.
and the thing that's
It's like
well,
because
and it's weird because go
some
ahead.
people just don't want to see that,
It,
and I think the whole like I also said that to a friend today, to my friend today. Like I think the whole gender and sexuality and like your relation with your significant other is just private. You're not really exactly supposed to talk about it or like display it really that much. Like obviously display it on public.
sure. Well, you would definitely be considered like a social conservative. You know, you don't want to have that shit. It's like people talking about taking a dump. You know, it's just like, oh, that's TMI. You know, it's just like, oh, sorry. You know, but I
Yeah, I don't want to
agree,
see
and
people
I
take a
think it
shit in
goes
the middle
both
of the
ways.
street. Also, I don't want to be see. I kind of, in a way, I don't.
Right,
It's not that I want to control people, but for me, I'm not
right,
programmed to look at people do certain things in a way. I don't want to say programmed,
right.
but it's
No,
like that is my way of. I wouldn't
right,
expect someone. I
right.
wouldn't expect to walk down the street and see someone take a shit in the middle of the fucking street.
And I just want to make sure it goes both ways because I I agree to a certain extent. The thing is I used to like I remember working in a restaurant once upon a time. And this gay guy that I would work with, he would come into work and be like, "Oh my god, sorry." He would like talk about getting like like done in the ass and like all of like the crazy shit that he had done with
Yeah,
somebody,
I.
and so then I always remember being like, "That's gross," but then at the next turn, like there would be like a straight guy talking about, oh man, I just ate like the most like a delicious pussy last night, and then for whatever reason, I felt like I didn't care or like cool, bro. But then I was like,
Gross.
why is this one okay and then this one is gross? And so then I realized, for
Hmm,
whatever reason, I feel
that's
like
weird.
a lot of straight people put their shit on display all the time. Like I hear about, oh man, I would put my
Yeah, yeah.
fucking dick
I think
inside her,
that also.
and, and it's just as
I
gross
would
and
say
vile.
both ways.
It is,
It shouldn't exactly. Yeah,
but
I
it
think
makes
both ways it is disgusting,
it's just
at
like
least from my perspective.
we can make jokes and do shit if we want, but
Yeah.
I guess I really,
I mean, look, I'm fine with jokes. It's like I'm not. All I'm saying is like, don't be over the top 99% of the time doing that. Because I
right,
understand if you're trying to joke with your buddies and then you broadly call your buddy or like say something disgusting to your buddy just to mess with him. But like your
yeah,
buddies and you know how
yeah, totally.
that dynamic of your relationship work.
Well, I mean, I hold my breath when I get close to people because I don't want to smell them on accident. So I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear about like them putting their shit in somebody's ass. I'm just like you're.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
kind of
Again,
gross. Like
I totally agree with you.
like as much as I wish
What?
transhumanism wouldn't be tainted with the idea of having like corporations run my like hardware, because if I could get my consciousness outside of my human body, I mean, because I'm so grossed out that I have to like eat and shit and sweat and like do all of these like things, like I would just put me in a robot
Hmm.
body. I want to be done with like the grossness of being a human. So when
Well, I mean,
somebody
it's
else is
about a
doing it,
view. You know, you
we're
can't
talking
exactly
about it.
stop doing
It's
it.
gross.
Uh, I-
Right,
it's
right,
not wrong to do these things. Is I think is just you should also keep them private between you and whoever you do it with.
right.
Or like your close circle of friends that okay, we're talking about this. Well, some people just don't like talking
Right,
about this. I personally do
right.
not really.
Time
I,
and
I don't
place.
have any interest in in that type of conversation, whether it's a straight, gay, or some less bullshit. I just I always
Right,
say keep your nasty shit for yourself, and I'll keep my nasty shit for myself.
right.
I think that's what like kind of
I
people
agree.
need to do in a way. But I mean, I also don't want to be that guy who sets rules for everyone. So
But at the same time,
yeah,
you are wanting people to do what you want them to do or not do.
yeah. So
Just in
maybe
the
I'm
same
wrong.
way, well, just in the same way, they're wanting you to accept or like the things that they want you to accept and like. So it's literally the same thing.
Well, I think
So it's and
the
so and
idea
that's
of like
and that's what's so fucking weird about it is like there is no middle really.
yeah, I think the middle ground is
Because
respect. Really, it's like
sure,
you know that one guy. You've
sure,
probably seen that video of that one guy who it's a black man who like talked to one of the lead, like one of the people high into the KKK, and like what
oh
happened
right,
is like they
right.
just respected each other,
Mm-hmm.
and regardless of the difference a bit, of their ideas and how they look at life and like look at each other, and the fact that they just could like one guy said I've been doing that for too long, I don't think I can change, but I do respect you. And he was talking to the man, and he's like yeah, and he said I respect him because he like was willing to tell me like what his idea is, and I do appreciate that part of it. All right, I because I mean
Sure.
I think I think it is respect in a way.
Well, like you were
But the
telling me
problem
about
is
that
the
Jewish
respect
friend of
usually has to
yours
be
that got
mutual.
pissed off.
Hmm?
Well, so like you were telling me about that Jewish friend of yours that got upset because you made like a Jewish joke, right? So like I would so
Oh god.
I feel like this is sort of like an applicable like well, if I don't know if you knew that person was Jewish or not, but you made the joke, but so like if you knew that they were, so were you disrespecting them on purpose or um, just making a joke? Or did you just not know and then it just so happened, oh, fuck, they're a Jew? Because it's so it's like in the real world, like there's this old joke like, how does every black joke start? Have you heard this joke?
No.
How does every black joke start?
How?
You look around the room. If there's a black person in the room, you're not going
uh,
to tell the fucking joke. So it's like you walk into a room full of
okay.
people. If you don't know a person is Jewish, I might just not make a Jewish joke, or if I knew
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
Jewish and I
So
wanted
that's
to.
actually not me. So,
I'm just saying,
well, the thing is, yeah, that is my approach, and that's how I do the jokes. So I'm not. It's not that we actually friends, just we know each other. So I don't know if they
sure,
consider me as a friend. I'm not. I wasn't exactly sure if I know them enough to consider them a friend. Um, but I
sure,
was fine. I was fine. Like I usually fine. I'm usually fine with anything that anyone says. I don't care. We can have an argument, but if they start yelling at
right,
me, I'm gonna limit the amount of talking I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like send towards them. But what happened? You kind of is.
sure,
I kind of didn't know, but I also was known to be the guy who makes jokes about everything and
right.
everything that people will find a bit too sensitive to make a joke about. And it's kind of a thing
So you're
here, like in
Canadian
the
Dave
Middle East.
Chappelle.
Not really. I'm not that funny. All right. I try to make jokes. I'm not a comedian. I'm not. Look, despite as much as I can try, sometimes it's not exactly the thing that I want to do. It's something I enjoy doing. I'm still
Sure,
kind of an engineer like mindset most of the time.
I get it.
Yeah, but
I think humor is also a very male trait too, so it's fine. I get it. I like
oh,
to be
I
funny
think
too.
it was, yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. It probably is. But the thing is, I was
Chicks
the
like funny
guy.
guys.
Yeah, yeah. I think that would make sense. But I think the thing that happened is like because I usually make jokes about everything, whether it's race, gender, idea, religion, people of the religion. I usually don't make jokes about religions. I make about the people of the religion. Let's say because
Sure.
like I think I shouldn't exactly disrespect a religion. But like people of the religion are not exactly that religion, and it's okay to
Right.
mess with people here and there a little bit that might get them thinking. So I
And
just
it
made the
might not even
joke,
be so much
and
the
I
people,
and I got shit for
but
making the
what they're
joke.
doing. Oh, well, They need to fucking grow a spine.
Maybe. I
You
mean,
know, and I get where you feel bad for
for
making
me,
a
yeah.
joke and being disrespectful, but at the same time, you could, sometimes you can be like, "Oh shit, my bad. I just was making a joke. I didn't really mean offense," and then it could be over. But
Yeah.
the fact that it became a thing, that's really annoying. We're all fucking idiots sometime, like
Yeah.
whatever.
I need to remember this. The way I go around things is like, yeah, I would say jokes, but like mostly the people know that I'm actually joking, and I think
Sure.
maybe it's just that everything is a joke. Every joke is funny until it happens to you, I think, or something. But I don't think that's how it is. I think every joke is funny until it's attacking your ideal, like truth or like your ultimate value.
Sure. Right.
But I also find it,
Your identity.
yeah, I also find
Yep.
I'll talk about that situation later because I kind of don't want to talk about it on this podcast. But I also find it a little bit
Sure. Sure.
hypocrite. I think
Well, but
that person
but
got mad at
that
me
was that.
and used the Jewish excuse because I did remember them saying that they do not believe in religion, and I'm like, you're contradicting yourself too much here.
Right.
I might be wrong. They're probably someone else,
There's
so I'm not exactly
I mean,
too sure of
it
that.
could have
Too sure of
been
that.
forgiven and forgotten. Like it's not like a real transgression
They never forgave me. They literally went out of their way to kind of. I think they acted at some point in a way where like they didn't just not want to be around me. They didn't want other people to
Let's
be around me.
move on. We can talk about this later. But
Yeah,
yeah, I did want to bring
yeah.
up like
I'll
but we were talking about respect and how you act and approach situations. So it just seemed like a relevant example of how well, and sometimes, I mean, it's not always the way, and and sometimes what we think is respect and disrespect isn't what somebody else. So again, it's just such a complicated thing. Like you say, there's no real way to keep everybody safe. Like, you know,
yeah,
and everybody has their
yeah.
biases and
And I do think it's
so
probably like the unwise way of trying to keep the religion alive. It's like whatever the teaching is going, whatever the process of teaching is going, like it's kind of like telling people you should do this, and people don't like being told what to do. But I find it interesting because it's an interview with like Jordan Peterson, because again is the only person that I know who does that type of interviews. But apparently, like people like who were losing faith in Christianity after like watching some of his stuff, they kind of gained that like that faith, I guess, in it back. And that didn't only happen with Jordan Beach, but also happened with another person of like in that conversation podcast. And I found it interesting. It's
well,
like
the
maybe it's
concept
just the
of
teaching is not
meaning
exactly
is
wrong.
very
It's not exactly right. I think it's just like broadly it is the failing of the maybe mosques or churches of like teaching the religion properly,
well, it's
and
like
that's why
that.
people losing faith.
But there's also that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink thing. Like you can teach
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well as you possibly want, like in the best possible conditions. But if somebody doesn't want to like do it, they're not going to do it. I mean, that's the same way with like going to work or having sex or like, like anything, taking the red pill. Like if you don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And no matter
they're
how
not gonna.
good or bad the system is. So, I mean, that's just the way that it is. And for whatever reason, I think
Yeah, I
people
mean,
think that people should, but it's like, no, you won't. But they don't see the dichotomy that if somebody told them to do something, they wouldn't do it either. So the fact that people get upset
yeah,
is ridiculous. It's like, whoa, like take a step back, eat some mushrooms, step back, look at the whole thing, and be like, oh, I'm an asshole.
The mushrooms. That episode really got me thinking on psychedelic, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm still not gonna do it. But plus it's gonna probably get me in jail here. But also, to be fair, I think the problem is like once you nail that respect and like that teaching of wisdom, I think that when you start fixing the whole fucked up situation of people faith, because now in my opinion, now I see like more and more people are moving away from the whole religion thing. I'm like, is it that the religion is bad, or is it not exactly taught well, and in a way, it appears to be too rigid.
Right.
And I think we're always like
I
taught the bloody
wonder.
side of it. Where like
Sure. I mean,
some,
that's just history at that point.
yeah,
Well, I wonder if it's just outdated because I feel like even I'll just use Christianity because it's an easy example for me, but I
mm,
think Christianity comes from a much older religion. I think it was just, it was
mm,
like, I mean, you even have the Old Testament, you have the New Testament. Who fucking knows where the stories were accumulated and what book those stories came from originally? But I think it was like that shit got old. People weren't connected to it anymore. And then Christianity, sort of rewashed it, edited the book a little bit, rewrote it, updated it for the civilization. Okay, now this guy named Jesus lived in the year fucking zero or whatever, and then people had
mm,
more of a connection to it and it was more relevant to their lives. And I've always thought, like, some people say other religions are all offshoots, like Scientology is kind of a new religion. That's weird. But the thing is I wonder if it's
yeah,
just not. I wonder if we've gotten too far away from it, that it's old and it's dusty and it's meaningless to people now, that maybe there's going to be some weird that's why these new like cults and shit pop up, because it's just that shit
mm,
is dated and people aren't connected to it anymore. Our lives are so different than those people living in like Judea and fucking like Israel and shit. It's like, what the fuck?
yeah. I mean, the thing, I don't think the religions are like rigid enough to be outdated. I think they are like they still have enough flexibility in them to probably keep going for who knows
I
how
mean,
long. It could be the issue that
I
people
think the
think it
room
is old, but I don't think it is like too old
it's
to be used.
No, and I agree. But look at people like you can like those people that won't play a video game that doesn't have beautiful graphics, or those people that will like won't watch a
Yeah,
movie because it's in black and white. And I'm like, dude, it's a masterpiece. And they're like, I can't watch a black and white movie. It's just like people can't. Oh, you sent me a YouTube video that's 20 minutes long. I'm not going to watch a YouTube video that's 20 minutes long. I need like 60 seconds or less. So like people uh people are so disconnected from having to put themselves in this old book and read this prose that's not written in like proper English. Like the audience today, if you want to call it an audience, is so like hyper modern. Like this post human civilization right
I
now.
don't think it's hyper modern. It's like trying to be quick about things.
Right.
I think like
Okay.
trying to gain things
I
really
I
quick.
I, I
Don't think you can do. I don't think you can gain knowledge quickly at all. I've been working on a
no.
shitty, silly
Oh, I see what
project
you
for
mean.
2 years. Like
Right.
if someone with a
I want to
good
lose weight. Take
experience
a pill.
could like just come out and like do it in maybe a month and would call me stupid.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, but you probably have 15 years of experience with that shit. I just started 2 years ago and I'm
Right.
still like tinkering with stuff, I guess if that's a word, and like playing with things and trying to understand how they work.
Well, nobody glorifies the trial and error of a thing. Like if there is, say, like a
I
violinist,
think
the people like they'll show up and be like, "Oh my God, this violinist is amazing. Where did they come from? Oh, famous overnight." And it's like, no, they didn't pop out of nowhere. They weren't famous overnight. They've been working their whole fucking life to
Yeah.
master the art and craft of playing that instrument. You are only aware of them once they reach that level. But at one point, they sucked. But we never see that. So yeah, people, we only see
Yeah.
the successes. So people have sort of internalized it that, oh, well, if I try something once and I'm not good at it, oh, I'm not good at it and I suck, and then they won't ever do
Oh
it again.
yeah.
It's like, no, you don't suck. You just don't know what you're fucking doing yet.
I think
But I can't sing.
I heard about like that. I think, I mean, to be fair, and I hope that doesn't hit you hard, but I think your voice is not exactly the best for singing. But I would say you would do perfect. You would do fucking perfect at like voice acting or narrating books. You would do fucking amazing.
Awesome.
That's how I think of it.
I'm well. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. But I mean, the thing is, I lost my point. I think yeah, it's the fact that you need to the acceptance of fail, I guess.
Right.
Because let's be honest, you're gonna fail way more than you will ever be successful.
Right. And people don't like to fail.
Yeah, I mean
So,
specifically,
and people think
especially
of,
me. It's like the problem is also there's like this whole idea. If you look at like I think it comes from parenting too. Like an Asian culture, it's like if you fail, like that is too big of a shame to go through that you they would rather kill themselves working
right,
than failing. It's like it is a huge
right,
shame.
which
I
is
don't like
ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. Like you need to allow the fail to happen.
We maybe we need a new word because I feel like when we fail, we feel like we failed, but really failing just means, oh, now I know that I don't want to do it that way. It's more like learning.
Hmm.
Like, oh, I'm learning. Like that's I think we should just change our perspective. I
Well, I
didn't
mean the
fail,
word already exists,
right? Because that becomes
but the thing is,
discouraging.
I also I hate when someone say we need a new word. It's like no, don't make things sound nicer. You know, changing the name of the condition doesn't fix the condition. It
Well,
is just a different name.
and I'm not advocating for a new name, but I think I'm advocating for a new perspective. Like I said, like if I think of it as learning, okay, well, that's
Yeah,
not a new word. It's just I'm changing my idea of what just occurred. I didn't
yeah,
fail. Okay, I'm learning, and then I move on. It's just like when I play Dark Souls. We were talking about that last week. I hate playing Dark Souls because I hate dying. So so instead of thinking, well, I died, I could be like, oh, now I know what I need to do. But I get so
yeah.
frustrated by dying over and over and over again, I don't want to play it.
Yeah, yeah. I
I mean, I
understand.
get
It
it.
is frustrating. Like I still hate failing so much because the fact
Me
that I
too. Everybody
haven't
does.
that is the fact that I haven't like published my website, which like the plan is to publish it for like anyone to be able to use it. Is like
Sure.
the fact that I failed every time I said, okay, this month I'm gonna finish it, and then the month ended before I didn't even get close, and then I said, okay, this month I will. And every time, every like deadline I set for myself, it just failed, and like
Well,
endless
I feel
failure
like a
can
lot of
eventually like fucking destroy you.
Well, so then I
So
say
yeah, I
like
know what you mean.
that's when and that's why I'm all about the change of perspective as opposed to so when we set goals, I would say instead of being like I'm going to finish it and I'm going to post it at this point, if you make smaller goals like, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to get this aspect perfect by the end of the month." And then okay, now I'm going to get like this right for till the end of the month. But when you make the goal
Yeah,
so huge, it's going to be finished, it's going to be perfect, and I'm going to do it at the end of the month. Of course, you're going to fail. But if you just took smaller bites, I'm not saying you specifically, but in general, like
yeah,
if we change our perspective instead of being like it's going to be perfect, it's going to be a masterpiece, it's like I'm going to get this done, and then after a
yeah.
while, it'll all start to come together, and then when it gets done, you're like, oh shit, it's ready. Boop, and there it is, and there's no stress, there's no failure. You just
Yeah.
took your time. It's all perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's also like because you failed too much. It's like there's. I think that's from The Simpsons. It's like you failed once, and you tried again, and you failed again. What did you learn? It's like try harder the next time, and it's like no, do not try. I think that what ends up happening. I think it's just like the fact that because we're so afraid, I guess, of failure, that we put so
Sure.
much pressure on, like, let's say you will put so much pressure on the next generation to not fail. So when they do, because eventually they will, and like they will start failing way more than they will not fail, let's say, or succeed. At some point, it's like, oh, maybe I'm failing because I shouldn't be doing that, and I will stop trying.
Right, right.
I think that is the
So,
problem.
because there is that aspect too. Because I don't want to be 100% positive all the time. If you just keep trying, you'll be like the beefiest man or the best program.
Yeah,
So there is a point. Yeah, you can try it and try and try, but once you get to the point, yeah, it's like, oh, maybe this isn't the thing. Because I've quit a lot of things, but I've also stuck through a lot of things. Yeah, and I guess you have to make
yeah,
that decision. But if quitting happens every time, literally nothing's going to get done, and all we will have
yeah,
known
yeah. I
was
think that's what
failure.
happened, like with me. Like once I got to the seventh grade, where like I just could not exactly just rely on my brain to understand the things that have been taught,
Mm,
and I'm also not used to studying on my own.
mm,
So that's when with like my grades were my grades were starting degrading, until like they still until now. Well, now I kind of don't give a shit, but like I used to give a shit before. Like my grades were like
right,
bad, and I was like, why I'm not understanding this concept from the first time I'm trying to learn it. And it's like, oh, it's
right.
because
But
I am
and
not
it's
actually, I'm just stupid. And well, I mean, if I try
well,
again, I will just fail.
the concept of grades are weird because when you're that age, because you were really fucking young then, right? So I mean, like your concept of the world
Yeah,
is pretty narrow at that point in life, and our grades when we're that young is really the only metric we're given aside from like our mom or whatever
yeah,
being like, "Oh, you're such a good boy." That's the only metric that like values or gives us a definitive value of our worth. And when you're a kid and that's the only thing there is, and you're not doing well in it, I think it's gonna fuck up your like mental state. It's like, oh shit,
mm,
this is the only thing that they're fucking testing me on, and I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible. But once you become older and,
yeah.
a more complex individual, and there are so many things that you can do, and it's just like that lady that was teaching
Just
you,
to become an actual human.
yeah, it's like, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe I was so down and out. That bitch doesn't know anything. Um, so yeah, I mean, and that's why when you just stick with it, whether it's just being alive or sticking with a trade,
Yeah,
eventually either you'll have an aha moment of I can do this, or I don't want to do this, or I want to do something else. You know, just in some way keeping going is important.
yeah. I think failure is not the
And,
point where you stop. It's like really, it is just giving up. Is where the whole is like where you actually fail. So I know why do you say why you said like we need a different word for it, because I think a failure is more like an error, and like failing is when you quit, really.
right.
So like maybe that's the
You
concept.
failed.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, you
Well,
also don't want to be called a loser. That kind of hit you hard when it happens.
sure. And
So
that's interesting. And I don't mean to change the subject, but
mm,
somebody was talking about loser, and we were talking about words. Um, they were talking about the loser concept, and they were just making the distinction
Hmm.
that only men are considered losers. Would you agree with that?
Hmm. I'm not so sure. I don't think no. I agree with that. But why? Do you like have like more to go with?
Well, so this is sort of, I mean, it's all sort of part of this notion of like women are human beings and men are human doings.
Ah,
Women
yeah.
have like this inherent value
Okay.
because they're women and they can reproduce and all this shit, but men are what we can do and produce. And if I don't do or produce anything and I'm not wealthy or adding to society, I would be considered a loser.
Yeah.
But I really don't think
Yeah.
women are losers. Like, that's literally an only, and I think that might, aside from
Well, I
creep,
think it's
I
too
think
late.
loser is the word.
It's
Like
too late
loser.
when it shows up.
Well, but
I
it's
think
also
it's too late to show when it show up. Like if you, I think you would consider women to be losers when, like, let's say they failed to have a family, for example, or like they had a family but the child hates them and never see them again, like leaves and never shows up again.
sure,
You know, like when
sure,
they hate
but
their own
I don't know that
children,
I've
let's say, or
ever
their
called
own
a
children hates them. I think that's when it starts to actually show up if they are a loser or not. Because I think that's just a bit
sure,
late. Like they probably
maybe.
gain up on the early game, let's call it this way. But if they don't maintain it, it's gonna
But
lose in the late game.
yeah, but
If you want to call it a game.
but I'm speaking like strictly linguistically though. Nobody is ever like, oh my god, she's such a loser because of the things that you mentioned. They might be like, she's a bad mother
Mm.
or she's a terrible person, but you literally specifically being like, I don't want to be a loser. I don't think that is never a thought that crosses a woman's mind.
Well,
Like
maybe. I mean, we don't
they
know. I mean,
they might,
we're both
I don't
we're
want to
both
be a
guys.
whore, or I don't want to be a this, or I don't want to be a bad mother or a bad person or a bad wife. They're just
Yeah.
like, but I don't want to be,
Oh
but
my god.
being the fear of being a loser, I think, is a strictly male anxiety.
Oh.
Hey, I should probably
Yeah.
get going here. I feel like I changed the subject
Oh
right
shit. Is it
where,
getting late?
because, huh? Well, I mean, I've got to go to work soon. I got to get some like RL like stuff
Ah.
done before I go and all that jazz.
All
Um,
right. All right. Cool.
but yeah,
Yeah, I still kind of want to talk about that though. That's sad. But so what did we get like just before we leave a little bit and get an intro, outro?
yeah, sure.
So we talked about the whole like yeah the ultimate value kind of, because I kind of want to keep
Mm-hmm.
this. I'm gonna watch that before we do the next one, and like what do you call it? Like keep going with the next one, taken from that one. Because I think what happened. The reason I also wanted to talk about the ultimate value, also I think it goes well with the story of Dark Souls, because like again, it's like the ultimate value was like the what do you call it? The first flame, and you know
Oh,
they
okay.
didn't want that age to die, and to just literally did whatever, like whatever it takes, no matter, like no price is too high, and they fucked up the whole world. And I think that's what's happening is
Right.
like you don't exactly understand. I think what that's what happens. Like some people don't understand what the religion is. Some people just don't want to be in it, and some people are like, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
takes, we will keep this alive, even if it takes that we kill other
Right.
people. I think that's what's going wrong right now. But I think that's also
I can
destroying
see
it.
that.
It's kind of a self-destructive.
Well, I feel like there's so many people doing that on different sides. It's not like this one unified. It's not just we're keeping
Yeah,
the flame. It's like
it's not
these
only
people
yeah,
over here are doing this at any cost, and these people over here are doing this at any cost, and these people over here are doing this at any cost. And in the midst of all of this zealotry, it kind of creates a war. And it's almost like the battle is going to be the destruction as
yeah,
opposed to preserving this one aspect, which is maybe
yeah. I think it's
wrong, but
too
that's
many
just
ideas
my sort of
fighting with each
interpretation.
other instead of not fighting with each other.
Right.
I think that is the trick.
Right. Right. Exactly. All right. I got to
But
get off here.
I'll give it an answer. Just all right. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching the fourth, I believe, episode of the Simple Podcast. This is a bit chaotic topic. We a little bit inconsistent, but we hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you hopefully in the next week or maybe a few days. Until then, take care and hope to see you in the next one.